Hey, Neil McDonnell here. Today's topic I want to share with you is on the lessons I learned and the outcome from refusing a $5 million contract. So I'm going to get in and talk about that. Before I do, I just wanted to point out a couple of things. I want to get good at saying this at the beginning of every LinkedIn Live event, just so we get started with some basic reminders, right? One thing is, if you haven't gone to the GovCon Chamber .com website, go ahead and do that. You can see it right there. GovCon Chamber, just put it together in .com. GovConChamber.com website. It's got all sorts of stuff on there, but the homepage, you'll find some really valuable directories, and we update them as needed. So generally, it's monthly at the moment, but we'll do it as needed when there's new information out on there. One of them in particular that we just released is about forecasts, and so we're trying to build this up where there's a single directory where you can go to and find the forecast. It always drove me nuts over the last 20 years. I'm like, where are these forecasts? And somebody will come around with like a gem. Hey, I just found this forecast. It's for the Navy, Nav War or something. They got their own portal. It's like, okay, great. And so I'm trying to put them all in one place, and our team is, so that you don't have to do all that research and digging into it. The other thing, so go to govconchamber.com to just get some of those directories. They're really helpful for day to day. Like I said, for 20 years, I was a small business owner, basically a small business salesperson, right? Out there making the calls to the federal government myself. And I wasted so much time looking for people's names, numbers, and emails. These directories are designed to shave off, half the waste of time that you would spend doing that same thing. So that's that. And then the other thing is, one of the things that I'm trying to do with these daily lives, right? So if you're watching this right now, know that I'll be doing this live every day, 12 to 12:30 East Coast time. There's a lot of people out there who will talk, and a lot of books, et cetera. A lot of information you can get on what we should be doing as government contractors, whether it's related to the process side of the house or the sales side of the house, the execution of the work, but not as much on the how. I really feel like I don't see enough of the how. When I was a government contractor, I used to, somebody would say, hey, you need to get in. It's relationships within an agency that works. Great. How do I do that? How do I get into a program office where it's pretty elusive? And so anytime I'm talking to you, I'm trying to figure out, how do I teach you about the how, or how do I just add a component of answering how in there? And then the other thing is, I'm a very tactical person. I like having tactical next steps for you, for me, on any time I'm talking. So, as I move forward, whenever I can, I'm going to try to give you a piece of advice that says, go do this. Coming out of this this live event, this video, this webcast, webinar, whatever it is, just go do this step. And so I'm always going to try to give you a next step. I wanted to give a quick thank you to all of you who have showed up at this point. It's really helpful when you show up early, because you get the most of the message, but it also lets LinkedIn let other people know that this event's going on, and maybe we can spread the word out there. And so one thing I offer you today, and if you weren't here yesterday, I said I would like to start trying to offer something to you as a reward, if you will, for showing up early or on time, right? Compared to when you attend a webinar, we tend to say, hey, stay to the end of the webinar and I'll give you something special. Well, here I'm saying, come early and I'll tell you about something special early on. And whether you stay the whole time is up to you, but at least, you're getting this special offer, gift, whatever it is. So I talk a lot about visibility in the federal space. How visible are you to the federal buyer? And if you send me a private message in LinkedIn with your DUNS number, I'll shoot you a quick visibility gap analysis, is what I call it. Basically, I'll just tell you how visible you are and give you a couple of quick suggestions on what you could do to increase your visibility. I do this a lot when I work with organizations out there, federal agencies, and we do joint events and I speak. I do this for their attendees for free. So it's something I do for at least hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of businesses over the last 4 years. Be happy to do it for you as a thank you for showing up. Okay, so let's get to today's topic. I want to talk to you about this contract that I got offered, $5 million, and just put some context in. When I was running my businesses, I was always in the professional services IT space. And the last business was really focused on Microsoft Sharepoint, which is a component of Office 365, so Microsoft Suite. Anyways, this was a $5 million contract that I was offered. And this was with the White House. So the Executive Office of the President, what's actually called. but more familiarly, the White House. So this contract was with the White House. And to put it, even further into context of how crazy this is, on the day that I refused this, it was September 30th. And they were at the end, and we had been working on this opportunity for several months, and we had impressed them, and we're going down the line. But 10 o'clock on I can't remember what day it was, but September 30th is the date. Around 10 o'clock, we just let the contracting officer know that, hey, I can't take this. We want this contract. We desperately want it. In fact, just to put things a little bit more in context, this was, I think, back in 2012, there was the sequestration going on. The government was trying to figure out how to cut dollars, and our company happened to be over dependent on subcontracting with larges, and the larges just cut our contracts. They had to put their own people to work before laying them off. So they just said, hey, contractors, we don't need your service anymore. And that's a whole nother live session where I tell you, don't put all your eggs in one basket. But anyway, so we were in kind of bad shape, and all businesses go up and down, and you just, as long as you're getting a little higher with each up and down, you're fine. But we wanted that contract. We really needed that contract, but it was not right for us. It was 100% the right work. It was the scope, the skill sets that we had, massive amount of experience. But it wasn't the right work. And when we refused it, we got really lucky, because the contracting officer was like, what are you talking about? Like, why would you refuse this? And we went on to tell him why. And this is part of the message I'm trying to get across to you today, not on how to be a person who just refuses contracts, but a person in a company who knows what you're good at, what you do, and what you will and will not do. And if you have those guiding principles, core competencies defined, if you have these values in place, and in this case, it was partially values and partially skills and core competencies, we knew our work. We're experts at Sharepoint. No one was better than us, including Microsoft, and we can talk about that in another time. But we told this contracting officer that the reason we refused it was because we had been contacted by senior people in the White House who were in the IT space, including like up to GS 14 and 15 level, who were telling us two things. We had to run the contract the way they wanted. We had to, they were hiring us to do their SharePoint environment, and they were saying, hey, you have to do it the way we envision. We were like, you guys are doing it wrong. We're not going to come in and get paid to do it wrong, and then somebody blames us later. And then the other thing was, they were telling us we had to use the existing people, and we have always been about we hire just the best people at Sharepoint. We're not hiring somebody just because they're there. I'm not hiring. There's Rudy Giuliani, not to bring politics into the mix. A long time ago, said a line I loved was, I'll never hire my brother just because he's my brother, but I'll also never not hire my brother because he's my brother. It's just not fair. But there should be fairness in there, as long as there's fairness. And so anyways, this the people who were, the IT leaders or whatever, they wanted us to hire the people who were already there. And it wasn't a fit for us. First off, the people who were in the job, they just didn't operate the way we did. They're good people and skilled, but they didn't operate the way we did. We operated as a team. They operated as heroes. And we don't hire heroes. We hire people who are part of the team. And so the second reason that it was a big deal is the person who was on wanted so much money. We're like, I'm not coming in and paying it and eating up the profit. And this is really important. Maybe this is lesson one on here, is that I often see companies get caught up in this with this idea of, well, I need to just get in, and so I'm going to gut my rates or any of this kind of stuff. It's like, no, don't gut your rates. If you're the best at what you do, right? If you're the most efficient on the janitorial or the lawn care services, if you're the most efficient in professional services, et cetera, you got the best product, you don't gut your prices. There's a line in sales that says, if you're talking about price, the value hasn't been proven. And we had proven our value. And so in this case with the incumbent staff is what it really was. It's like, we're not hiring them. They got paid way too much for the type of work that was needed, and they weren't actually the right people. And I in no way am trying to disparage those people. They just weren't a fit for that job. If you ever read a book called Good to Great, they talk about getting the right people on the bus and then getting them in the right seat. And that right seat means the right role for each person. So each of us fit better at certain roles. An example is I'm no good as a supervisor. I'm just horrible. I don't have a really good empathetic bone as much as I try. So that doesn't make me a great supervisor, but I'm very good project manager, for example. I can get something done on time, on cost, and within scope. And so, it fits in that different space. Anyway, so we were telling the contracting officer this, is that, look, those guys want us to do it their way, not the way that we had just recommended to you. And they want us to use your people, not our people. The other reason that was kind of a big deal, and keep this in mind, is we were using this to get us in. And so we wanted our senior management to get in because we train our senior managers on how to do organic sales. This person was just a great SharePoint person on site, but they weren't going to do sales the way we need them to grow a business. And so that was really important to us. Anyways, we had this conversation with the contracting officer, and we're telling her our concerns. And I still remember this line. It was one of my favorite lines. She's like, you don't work for them. You work for me. I'm buying what you're selling. You guys fit everything I need. I did my due diligence. You fit it. And when we when we sign a contract with you, this is the scope. It's up to you to decide how you execute it, who you execute it. It's up to us to hold you accountable to the measurements, the requirements, the deliverables, etc. But we don't tell you who to hire. We don't tell you the methodology. We tell you what we need. And it was a huge lesson for me. And I'm going to tell you how this lesson ended up being tens of millions of dollars in value to our company. Because, again, this was a $5 million contract we had refused. And when this contracting officer told us that we could accept it, and it would be with her, and we could run it our way, that was all we needed to sit there and sign it. People inside didn't like it. It took us 2 or 3 months to get them used to us, and 2 or 3 more months for them to love us and realize that what we were doing was right. And we weren't arrogant. We were just very good at one thing, SharePoint. And another big lesson that comes out of this is Steve Jobs. I don't know if you ever watched this video, but he did this huge, not huge, but he did this commencement speech. I think it was Harvard or wherever, Stanford. But he did this speech where he talks about you can't connect the dots until you've kind of gone forward. So you can only connect the dots going backward. I don't know which way to point, right? But you can't connect the dots going forward. If I do this, then this, then this, you can try to expect that will happen, but you can't predict that will happen. But you can absolutely predict what's happened, because it's like looking back and saying this happened because of this, because of this. And what I want to share is how when we refused that contract, we earned the contracting officer's respect, because they said these guys aren't just going to come in as a small company trying to grab whatever they can, and maybe they put on somebody, do a good job, don't do a good job. And remember, we're supporting the president. This contract was to actively support the White House and the President of the United States. And we covered 2 administrations. So we went for a while. The contract that we got with the White House after we went through this impressed the contracting officer, which then led us to get a DoD contract directly from her, because she went over to DoD, still supporting the White House. In DoD, there's something called the White House Communication Office. It's all the travel communication. We went over there and got a contract there, and it was because of her. She said they had to do SharePoint. They were like, these guys are the best. These guys are good. Let's get them in. So she pulled us over. Millions more in contracts. And then somebody we were working with there went back, because this is DoD, so it had people from Army, Navy, Air Force, et cetera. Somebody from the Air Force went back to this Air Force major command, and they pulled us over there for millions of dollars in contract values as well. So $10 or $20 million in contract value all came back to this one contract that we got, that we refused when we first were offered it. The message I want to just get across to you is sometimes it's really important, and let me change sometimes. All times it's important to know what your value is, what your core competency is, and not just your values, right? We value this, we value that, but what your value is to the customer that you're supporting. We bring this to the table, and then knowing what your core competency is more about the skill. So the value to me is how we can help the customer with their mission in the federal government space. And so that one contract, that refusal helped us solidify ourselves within that customer as really good. I don't know how to describe. I don't want to say ethical. That's the wrong word. But this really together or mature small business that the government could trust to be able to do the job. Large and agencies constantly worry about, if we bring a small in, are they going to increase our risk, or are they going to help us accomplish a mission? And you want to be known as accomplishing the mission. And so we established that with them. Plus, we established really solid experience in SharePoint in a highly high velocity agency, right? There's almost no agency out there that moves at the velocity of the White House, because the president's just moving left to right. Even the military has days or something before things have to happen at its most urgent. But the White House tends to move on an hourly basis. The priorities are changing. Long story short, right? It led to these ones, and that was really good. And so I encourage you to go back. I'm telling you the story because I'm hoping you realize that if you know what your value is and you know what your core competency is, when you get into a situation like this, whether it's with a teaming partner or with an agency, you can remind yourself that you do have value and bring value to the team, and you do have the skills and past performance that somebody needs when you're at that level, right? So stick to your guns. We don't have to be brutal about it, right? We don't have to be mean about it, but this ability to talk to somebody and work it through. And going back to that idea of, if we're talking about price, we didn't prove the value out more, figure out how to do that. And I'll do a lot more videos on those and lives about how do I prove the value, right? How do I demonstrate that I'm the subject matter expertise, or my company is the subject matter expertise that they can count on. One other thing, I just want to add a separate story that ties directly with this, because when I'm saying connect the dots, right? You saw where I just connected three major dots, where it was the White House led to the DOD, led to Air Force. And when I say DOD, I mean it's just an agency under DOD and not Army, Navy, Air Force. But those three led in there, and each one of them were 5 million plus contracts going forward. So they were all good contracts. Every one of those contracts was SharePoint contracts, and we did all sorts of stuff, but we only marketed our core competency as SharePoint. And these were three major ones. That Air Force one, by the way, that ended up being a past performance that allowed us to compete with Microsoft, who makes SharePoint, because we dealt with 100,000 plus users. No one's doing that. Like 2-3 companies at best could come in with a past performance. That allowed us to be attractive to largest, where they're like, oh my God, you guys are squared away. You're going to help us increase value on this contract to our customers and not increase the risk. So connect the dots there. But I wanted to throw you one little sidebar on connecting the dots. Whenever I look back at the last company I have and where our success comes from in the federal space, I never forget to remind myself to thank this guy, Ted Fells, out there. When we came into the federal space, and this is, if you watched Monday's video, I say go find a small business and team up with them to get your experience. We teamed up with them. Longer story on how and all that stuff and connecting those dots. But Ted Fells allowed us to come in and be part of his company. I think it was called Nucor Vision. It was awesome. Invited us in. He saw us as a complimentary service, brought us into the VA, who he supported, but he didn't do SharePoint. And they had been asking him. He goes, well, I got these guys. And then he just allowed us to grow within the VA. And when you have that kind of relationship, that's what led us to the White House, because we were able to bring all this VA experience. So arguably, I can thank Ted for the Air Force contract because of that first thing, right? I'm not paying him dividends or residual, but I am definitely paying him a whole lot of thanks, whether I see him these days or not. And I want you to consider that same thing. Know what you're good at, because it helps you go talk to the small businesses you might get in, but it also allows you to hold your ground a lot stronger when you maybe feel like you're being disserviced by a federal agency or a large or other teaming partner where they're kind of stepping on you. I would argue that if people are able to step on you, you're not as strong in your convictions or your understanding of your core competency. And so my recommendation for your task today, if you take this away, is go think about what is it that you do that your company's the best at. And so that's the first thing. I said this yesterday as well. Go into LinkedIn now and look at your profile and just say, is it in there? There's millions of federal buyers on LinkedIn, right? We all got profiles these days, millions of them on there, certainly tens of thousands of buyers actively engaged federal buyers actively engaged. If they come across your profile, does your profile scream your single core competency? Yes, you can do a lot of other things, but one thing, does it scream your SharePoint? And if it doesn't, I would highly encourage you to get that on there. I'm going to pop over here and look at some of these notes really quick. Hey, Maxine, thanks. Yeah. One of the things I think will make me good at this, I've been doing it for 4 years now, this, let's call it coaching small businesses, is because I spent 4 years, I was very good at sales, and that's why we're able to build our business, but I didn't know the process. I didn't know the how. There's so much that's in there that I've really learned now that I've not been in my company, but I'm able to work on every company, this ability to learn the how and just give it to you. It's like, you don't want to know too much about the what. Just tell me how to get in and do it. And then Cynthia, I'm looking at your comment. And how often are the forecasts accurate? Well, I can't give you a accuracy on it. Too often they're so vague. Here's an opportunity that's a perfect fit for you. You can't bid because category management, we're already who's getting it. It's not you. So if you haven't read Cynthia's chat in there, look at it. For those of you who listen to the podcast, basically she's saying accurately the forecasts are not reliable. And that's why yesterday when I did a video, I said, get out of the market research and get further left, whichever way that is on a video, but shift left. And when you can get in the door and have conversations earlier, you will begin to learn about opportunities that aren't out there. That's the advantage of being an incumbent. And if you can't be an incumbent, you've got to figure out how to get in the door. And I talked about it a little bit yesterday. I will continue to talk about it as we go forward. Next week, I plan on doing my plan is to do a lot of videos on capture. And so I'll start talking about that. But so let me just see other comments here. If people have comments, we know what we are best at. We even teach it for software vendors. We're the first company found for IDMS. That's exactly awesome. And one of the only in DSBS. Hey, shout out to DSBS. By the way, if your one thing is not in DSBS, go in there. Cynthia here is mentioning that if you search in DSBS, her company comes up for what she wants it to come up as. And in this case, I think IDMS. But bundling, et cetera, wiring. So there's definitely bundling is kind of a separate thing we'll get into. But I'm going to talk about wiring. And I can never address really any helpful way the problems that are happening today. But I can give advice. And this is what I want to use these daily LinkedIn Live events for, is taking something like what Cynthia wrote here and going, okay, well, what guidance can I give you on how to jump ahead of the wiring? Like, how do you get ahead of it? If wiring exists, we can, what can we do? And I've got tactical recommendations for you. So Cynthia, I'll write that down as one of our topics as we start going out to be able to address. So thank you very much for putting the comments in there. Hey, if you found this topic today valuable, or if you're finding these LinkedIn Lives valuable and you want me to just keep doing them, give me some thumbs up on LinkedIn so that LinkedIn lets other people know. First off, it'd be fun for me to finish this and see a thumb up or two. That's always fun. But LinkedIn will let other people know about what's going on out there and what we're trying to do. I do plan on bringing in guests, right? I used to do these formal webinars and formal panel interviews, but now with LinkedIn Live, I'm just going to bring them in and say, okay, we're one and done recordings and one and done events. And my goal is to bring in federal buyers. And so if you've got particular people that you'd like to see in here, or if you find value in these live events and you'd like me to keep doing them every day at 12, just give me a thumbs up. And I think I am good. I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you, Ann. Appreciate that. I'm going to wrap up early because we're good. I got my topic across, and if you're back tomorrow, I'll see you tomorrow. Remember, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process.